It's day 3 of our 12 films of Christmas here at the Watercress Line, where we look back at some of our favourite films from the last few years. Now, earlier this year, we were joined by railway historian Tim Dunn for a lovely day, if not slightly toasty, on the Wickham as we explored the architecture of the Watercress Line. Now, for today's episode, we're actually going to jump straight into part 2, where we see some remnants of the railway's building that you may just drive by when you visit the Watercress Line. And we all end on a heartwarming note, going back to the very point where the railway began its journey as the Watercress Line. So, sit back, relax, and enjoy. Welcome back to the Watercress Line and our Wickham survey of the archaeological joys this railway has to offer with the legendary Tim Dunn.
Legendary! Something like that. And of course, Richard Bentley, of course, operations manager here, who is driving us on this Wickham trolley on this incredible tour of the line, exploring all the great structures and stories to tell as we go along, blasting out into lovely sunshine as we go.
It's wonderful.
So, now, Will, where are we right now exactly?
So we're coming up to Grosvenor Road. An interesting fact about this railway, apart from being sort of built by hand before steam shovels were really present, was that the embankment we're coming onto was actually created using the spoil from the cutting. And this one is absolutely huge from a distance, really far down.
Well, we're now going down Richard, is it 1 in 200 gradients?
We're
go down?
1 in 60 now.
1 in 60?
1 in 60, yeah.
Is that all?
Yeah, we've just come out of the cutting, and now we're effectively on the spoil from the cutting. See how far down the road is now.
Wow.
So all of what we're on now is artificial and has come out the hole we've just come through, you know, so quite remarkable. It's all been moved by hand and wheelbarrow and horse and cart. And you just see the shant building, the black and white building over in the trees there. That was...
So the what? The shant?
The shant, yeah, which is effectively the remainder of the navvy camp that built the railway. So that's where the camp would have been for the guys that built this back in 1865. You know.
That's phenomenal. I mean, it's very rare to find buildings from that period involved with navvy camps, isn't it, still? So that's almost a unique survivor.
Pretty much, yeah, pretty much. Probably seen its fair share of interesting and debauchery in its time, I should think.
Well,
a few stories in there, I should think.
I'm sure. Now we're going down this gradient, aren't we, Will, almost down towards Ropley.
Our next station, yes, Ropley. So, well, I think the best thing we do is sit back, relax and enjoy the view.
Well, yeah. See you there.
It really is amazing when you think about it. All of this was dug by hand, from deep cuttings to towering embankments, which today provide us with the grandstand views of the Hampshire countryside. It is wonderful that even to this day you can still see the shant standing in white down by the main road. Over a century and a half later, you can still see this rare remnant of the railway's story, distant from the train as you pass by. I can see why people do love this place. Into Ropley we roll. When the line closed, you would have found a very different sight here indeed. What better opportunity than this to really stretch our legs?
Oh, okay.
Welcome to Ropley, the hub of the railway.
And crucially, a very silent hub compared to being on that.
What was that? Sorry.
Well, first time for everything. But anyway, it's a big site, there's a lot to see, so what do I reckon? Richard, if you go that way, Tim, shall we go that way?
Brilliant.
Okay, see you in a bit.
Cheers.
Like the gang in Scooby-Doo, it's time to split. So we start with a neat little cabin that holds both a functional purpose and also a sentimental story.
Now, this building, Will, typifies to me all that is great about the preservation scene. It's the reuse of buildings from elsewhere, used as different things as years go by, but always finding a good use for a good structure. And this has had different uses, hasn't it? Because this has come from near Salisbury, Dean, in 78, I think.
Yes, so when it initially came here, it was the original sort of signal box. It had a ground frame inside it. When the new box at Netley came in, which we'll get Richard to talk about in a bit, they didn't really need it, so they moved it down here to be a crossing keeper box.
Okay.
And a person here just operates the crossing, but you may notice the name.
Well, it's Blake's Crossing. It's that normally you'd have the name of a local area on it or a station on it, but this is not an official name, is it? Blake's Crossing?
No, it's actually named after a person, a chap called Arthur Blake, one of the many personalities that the railway had. He had this fantastic knack, apparently, of getting people to help him out either wittingly or otherwise, because he was such a nice person. So he was the sort of founder of what we call the Wednesday Gang here at Ropley, and they're responsible for the beautiful station gardens, you name it. It was things like he would go down in the morning with a pair of scissors in the middle of the track, cutting off all the weeds, things like that. He also had this knack of making things out of pallets and crucially asking people nicely, and they couldn't say no to Arthur. He was a wonderful person. He'd go into the shed and you'd see a line of people going out the far side because they knew if he asked them to do something, they wouldn't get anything done. So when it moved down here, it was renamed Blake's Crossing in tribute to that wonderful man, Arthur.
Oh, what a lovely legacy. A legacy of both this name and, of course, the magnificent gardens that you see beyond.
So, that was Blake's Crossing. Now, excuse me a second, there's a lot to see at Ropley, so just going to swap sides, if that's all right.
I might take my orange waistcoat off, I think. It's warming up a little bit
on a hot
today.
day like this, that is a fine idea.
And I'm known for my waistcoats, but this is ridiculous. But one of the things about this station I adore from this particular angle as well, as you can see, it is the archetypal, typical country railway station. You've got everything here. Well, I can see you've got the station buildings, you've got signal boxes, you've got topiary and gardens, and you have even things like this, like a footbridge. You've got everything
It
here.
looks perfect, doesn't it? And it looks like it was always here, but it wasn't. And the obvious one is the footbridge.
Now
That was never there.
This is from North Taunton, isn't it, I think? Is that right?
Indeed so, thanks to a chap called Major Peter Olver.
Ah, now Peter Olver, Major Olver was I think he was part of the Ministry of Transport, and he was part of the Ministry of Inspectorate, wasn't he? I think, or Inspector of Railways.
Indeed
and he
so, yes.
He sort of had heritage railways sort of under his jurisdiction, and it was down to him really. It was one of those unspoken heroes, I think, of the heritage railway movement of the early years. And he didn't live a million miles from here, did he?
No, locally indeed, he'd come down here on inspections. In fact, he had a very keen eye. So they'd be doing a track walk and he'd see something wrong. He'd just walk nonchalantly past it and you think, oh, how did he not notice that? And a couple of 100 metres later, he'd stop you and say, I trust that'll be rectified next time I come down. Never missed a trick. But it's thanks to Major Peter Olver, there's so many things that's changed about this station. For example, when the Mid-Hants line was built, there weren't any footbridges. It was all barrow crossings.
It was just barrow crossings all the way along the line, right?
Indeed so, that's what the traffic warranted. But when it became a heritage railway, you couldn't possibly have that. We needed footbridges.
But he's one of those unsung heroes, isn't he, I think, of the heritage railway movement, the early years, particularly here as well, where he would just make stuff happen, help things be relocated from certain locations, or perhaps pave the way, or ensure that lines were guaranteed their way through the planning process and so on. Just gently nudge things as a civil servant. He's one of those people who's perhaps hasn't been shouted about, but he really has made the modern railway preservation movement what it is today. But all these things, I'm looking at this now, we've got all these buildings here. It does look like stuff has always actually been here, but that isn't the case, is it? Looking over here, on the down platform, or rather the up platform, isn't it? It's the up shelter.
The up waiting shelter. It looks like it was always here, fits in perfectly, but it wasn't. The ironwork actually came from Ringwood. The clock came from Aldershot. Everything else was constructed by the building department. In fact, it actually won an award, and when the people came down here, they said, congratulations on your restoration, and they were bowled over to find out it was actually made by our fantastic team.
Actually, a little fact I'd like to say about that clock over there. You can see on the clock, it's got the 24-hour clock on it. Now, the Southern Railway was the first proponent of the 24-hour clock in England on the railways, and it's from them really, of them pushing it forward, and at Waterloo, you'll see at Waterloo station clock as well, they were the early people that kicked off the 24-hour clock in England.
Bit of railway history here at Ropley. Now, from something that was never here to something that was always here, the station buildings. The building on your side, that was the original station building. In fact, when the railway was reopened as a heritage railway, there was actually still a family living in it. Apparently a chap called Gerald would come out and sell jam on the platform. They lived in there until I think it was the early 90s as well. If you came to this station when the line closed, all you'd see is that station building, the platform you're standing on, and a single track going through. This one was here, but it was decommissioned ages ago. It was covered in undergrowth, none of its up waiting shelter, none of the picnic area up there, nothing at all. And interestingly, the topiary was here as well.
Oh.
That dates back over a century, and we have old photos showing it as well. And it's amazing they've managed to keep it here.
I was going to say, this is I think, indicative to me of the Watercress's attention to detail, especially that you see here at Ropley, the topiary as well. And we've seen these barley twist lamp standards here. You've got along here. You have, I mean, and also we talk about, you mentioned the shelter here, of course. Even the ironwork that's been rescued from elsewhere of LSWR style, as it was, partly grouped together, different railways. But it is the detail here that is so perfect here, of rescuing things from other places, bringing them together, restoring them on this effectively a greenfield site, and creating something of perhaps a home for fallen buildings, perhaps almost like a Port Merion, as it is
So,
of the railways.
the Ropley
here.
Riviera, yeah, I like it. But yeah, it's amazing to see how it looks. And interesting note on the barley twist lamps, I can't remember which station it was, but these originally used to be gas lamps. There was an April Fool's joke that went out one time, but it had to be a counterclockwise spiral, because when the easterly wind would hit it, it would go up the lamp and blow out the gas.
Okay, classic railway humour there, classic railway humour. But that isn't all there is here, is it? Because there's other stuff to look at up that side of the site and over there as well.
Indeed, sir. So I think the best thing to do, Richard, we've been walking for a while, so he might be up there already. We'll hand over to him on the footbridge.
Ropley was chosen primarily because it had a reasonable sized goods yard. There was sort of a loading dock behind where the signal box is now, and a siding that ran up along the running line side under Byton Lane Bridge. So it was treated as a fairly good spot to pick as a depot. So 1978, the main shed, as we call it, was built. It was effectively a sort of a 3-line shed with a pit in it. That effectively took over from a plastic tent made out of boiler tubes, which was historically known as the Cocoon, where the likes of Bodmin and the likes were restored in the sort of late 70s. And really what you see today has kind of grown off of that. We've got a wheel drop shed now. The wheel drop came from Bricklayers Arms in East London, and that's now got a shed built over it. We've got a carriage shop and a boiler shop that was helped to us by the National Lottery Heritage Fund. And all of this has kind of evolved out of effectively a country goods yard that would have seen 2 or 3 wagons a week. It's 50 years in the making. It probably looks quite established now, but it's certainly sort of evolved as time's gone on and grown into what it is today. One of the challenges, obviously, of running an independent railway in the middle of nowhere, you've got to be self-sufficient. So you haven't got engine sheds to do overhauls for you. You've basically got to provide all your equipment and operate out of your own depot. So that's really a little bit of it. Obviously, we're intersected the depot but with the handyside footbridge that's come from King's Cross, famous for things like the 39 steps and the Harry Potter films. And that nicely neatly leads the passengers and the public through the site and gives you a bit of a grand tour through what's effectively a fairly big engineering base.
It is so impressive to see the regeneration of Ropley, the subtle but total transformation from a sleepy country station to a vibrant engineering hub. This site is so crucial in supporting the Watercress Line today, keeping it going for future generations to enjoy. Back at the other end of the station plot, Will has a treat in store to show us something that's a specialist subject of my own.
This is more my style, Will, I have to say. I feel more comfortable here because miniature railways are things I know a little bit about. This is 10 1/4 inch gauge, and this is what? This is Ropley High Level Station, I guess.
High Level,
yeah. Well, it's all the architecture, of course. This is
Originally here, definitely not built by our wonderful team here at the Miniature Railway, but it does look suitably in place.
It does look like it's a summer house, it does the job. But this little railway, talk about the railway briefly, is interestingly, they've got an engine that I almost bought myself when it was for sale at Weymouth many years ago, the Miniature Railway down there, which they now, I think it's Patricia now on the railway. And it does very good service here indeed. And looking down there, actually the sheds, I think actually based down there, aren't they, on a shipping container?
Indeed, so yeah, so the Miniature Railway initially started as sort of functional rather than fashionable. Ultimately, you need to be able to run trains. Looks come later. However, The shipping containers up there, they've now started, you can see they've put roofs on them as well, really making it blend in. The railway itself actually goes up over the hill into the distance, and you see the line of trees through there now into a field called 4 Acre Field.
So extending over that way, over the hills and far away.
As the poets would put it. But anyway, a lot more to see, we better crack on.
So this is Netley signal box. It controlled originally the station at Netley, which actually gave access to the sidings that led to the Royal Victoria Hospital, so probably saw a fair share of ambulance trains in its day. Came to us in the sort of early 1980s to replace a signal box that was demolished in the 1930s. So yeah, it's in a fair share of its own history, I should think. Hello, Will.
Sorry to interrupt, Richard. Have you seen Tim?
You've not lost him again, have you?
This is the way you end a trip round Ropley, isn't it, actually? I have to say, it's remarkable, isn't it? You might think this whole station site has been here forever, but almost all of it, apart from this station building and the platforms, entirely creation of the preservationists. Right, Malcolm's going to go around that way, I'll go around that way. Okay, right.
Our Ropley reconnaissance complete, off again, but don't worry, they did wait for me. Just one more station on our journey now, but let's not miss the passing features found en route, like the watercress beds, which, after all, lent the Watercress Line its name, and an interesting bit of future planning that's never been called into action.
Okay, so we're just coming up on Byton Lane Bridge, and it's a good example here where the railway, when it was built, all of the overbridges and underbridges were built for double track.
Yeah.
So although the earthworks were only done for single track, there was always that resilience built in that they could, wouldn't have to come back and knock everything down and start again. So all of our track is over on effectively the upside to London, and as you say, every bridge we've got is double width. So a real bit of forward thinking, really.
Well, just in case, of course, one day you want to put in double track main line in.
So much of this was very much speculative, wasn't it?
Yeah, of course it was.
How much the railways would change the environment. And obviously single track was enough for what we had here, but it saves you knocking it down and starting again, I guess.
Interesting, so the line was actually constructed with the flexibility to make it double track. That's very forward thinking. Onwards now to stop one last time in the middle of nowhere. A remarkably remote building, but a lifeline to the people working out on the track.
Welcome to the middle of nowhere, Tim. But you may be wondering why we brought you here.
Oh no, is it my final time here? Well, I can see you brought me here. There's 3 buildings here. There's this little building here which is wood and brick with its little chimney stack, and there, a prefab hut. So chaps, tell me about these buildings.
Effectively permanent way cabins, P-way gangs, guys that worked out on the ground all the time looking after the rails, the sleepers, everything out here, fences, the entire lot. So it was a bit of a bothy really, somewhere where they could go and take shelter. This type here was the earlier style, built out of sort of reclaimed sleepers from the track. Sort of a brick built fireplace in there, no windows generally, but just a sort of a snug place to go, somewhere you normally pick up coal that's fallen off the engines. And if not, you'd get somebody to throw some out on the way past just to keep the life support going. Latterly, we went over to the basically the precast concrete style. Now all of this stuff was produced for the Southern Railway Exmouth Junction. They had their own concrete works, made lamp posts, footbridges, platform edges,
signals,
you name it. Absolutely anything you can think of, they made it in concrete. And the beauty of these they were prefabricated, so they would turn up literally on open wagons, and you could crane them off to the line side complete, hence the shape in the roof to keep them within the loading gauge.
Very neat with a kit, like a prefab, houseboat as well, isn't it?
Totally.
I guess you must also remember that when they first built this railway, they sometimes got a scorched earth policy. So all these trees we're seeing here, most of these wouldn't have been here, back in 1900. So actually, 1880s, you would have had just this completely barren area, and so you really needed buildings like these for shelter.
Something, yeah.
Out here on the Alps, this is the place you needed it, right?
Yeah, and of course it was these guys that looked after the vegetation as much as the track, so they had what they called a length. And I think latterly there was 2 gangs for this bit of railway, so This was more or less the changeover point where we are here. So it was about 7 miles from Alton. One gang latterly would look after, and then the other gang would look after from here to Winchester Junction, and that was about right. But they would do everything. There would be track work, fencing, looking after bridges. We've got culverts underneath, vegetation, anything that needed looking at. So.
Our journey is now nearly at an end, and as we round the curve through another extremely deep cutting, I'm again in awe when you think that everything here was dug by hand before mechanisation really took hold. Something to think about when you next travel here. Anyway, with the sun starting to set, we arrive now at the final stop on our journey, Alresford.
Well, welcome to Alresford, our last stop.
And yeah, my back's quite thankful of that. Anyway, yeah, our last stop, I guess. But yeah, this is an interesting location, isn't it, to be?
Yes, it's sort of where the story of the Watercress Line really began. But there's a lot of interesting things here to see, and one tool you might need to appreciate them. I'll let you work that one out for yourself.
So you do know that I'm actually an amateur dentist, don't you?
I do now. Oh. On that note, I'll leave you with Richard.
He's running away.
Running away, yeah.
What is this then used for, Richard?
Well, that's we're interesting location. So because the line shut in February '73, it never actually managed to get electric lights. So we're still using gas lights, and that is our poker for pulling, basically a hook a duck, trying to pull the strings down on the gas lamps. There's a few interesting bits as we go. So the signal box here is the original one that was still used right up to the bitter end. Because it was halfway between Alton and Winchester, this was a good place for the Hampshire units to cross over and pass between stations.
So whereas the box at Ropley, the box at Medstead and Foremarks, and the one at Alton are all kind of reconstructions or moved in, this is the real deal. Here and is the original pattern,
Absolutely.
LSWR pattern.
Absolutely right, yeah.
In fact, you know, it's just like the one that got at Instow, isn't it? Down the West Coast.
Yeah, exactly the same pattern. Originally would have been built with the cross members visible.
Yeah.
But I think they suffered a little bit with rot, so they boarded them in after a period of time.
Magic.
And then that builds into the station building, so there's been some alterations as time's gone on to sort of trying to suit the preservation mould. And then the wooden structure.
This isn't original, is it? Well, it doesn't
It
belong
isn't,
here.
It isn't, yeah, exactly, yeah. So it's from quite a long way away. I don't know whether you're aware where it's from, but effectively from Lyme Regis. It was effectively withdrawn from there, and the team in the sort of early 80s basically took it down as a flat pack and moved it in and blended it really quite nicely into the station. You know,
I mean, you'd hardly know it wasn't a part of a large country stations buffet, would you? I mean, it looks like it fits here. It looks like it's always been here.
It really worked. So yeah, if we ever wander a little bit further down as we go, then so obviously that comes back in. This was the original end of the building. Then this would have been a bit of a lean-to on this end of the thing. So it's where it's blended the Lyme Regis building in.
Which again, you wouldn't know. I mean, I've been in and out of here a number of times. Never been upstairs. What happens upstairs?
So in a lot of ways, it's like the administration headquarters of the railway. So we've got the sort of various offices for the sort of the marketing team and the reservations, accounts, and all the sort of the backroom stuff. Ironically, there was nobody in the station when the line closed, so the station master had been done away with in the sort of late 60s, early 70s. So by 73, the building was vacant. I think it was covered by the Winchester station master. So it was effectively vacant for the Preservation Society, and before the line actually closed, they were actually renting one of the rooms from the British Rail Board to try and start the campaign off to actually start the preservation side.
Well, I love this. I love the way that, you know, even on the inside of these arches they've been painted white as well, kind of kept nice and neat. And up here, look, you've got the next train board for your fingerboards, where you're going to next.
Absolutely.
All the details are here in your station. It's
Fantastic.
It's a really great survivor. You're looking after it in a really great way and actually improving what was already here in pre-preservation.
Try to be. I mean, I think preservation is all about being a custodian.
Yeah.
In truth, you know, we inherited it from somebody else, and I think the best way, if you can pass it on to the next people, next generation, in the best possible condition. You know, that's really what we were all on the place for a short time, but if you can say that you did a bit of good for it and passed it on in a better state than you got it, then that's not a bad marker, you know. I
think you guys are doing absolutely that. Now, I'm going to go back and see Will down there and turn some lights off as I go.
Fantastic.
So I guess, Will, this is probably as good a place as any to talk about actually the elephant in the room. Why are you called the Watercress Line?
Well, It's all thanks to, well, watercress. Watercress was and still is grown locally here around Alresford. We've got lovely kind of chalk stream, mineral-rich rivers, and it produces fantastic growing conditions for watercress. However, until the railway came, it could only be enjoyed locally. Railway coming changed that. It can now be sent up to Covent Garden within 4 hours, even as far as Nottingham. In fact, there's a photo showing where we're standing here, the cattle dock, the loading bay, showing watercress being brought in by horse and cart and loaded to be sent off.
So it wasn't just a cattle dock at all. So you had here actually a huge goods transshipment area. You didn't really have watercress, you got cattle, all sorts of freight coming in and out of this busy market town here in Hampshire.
Pretty much, yes. So it wasn't just watercress, as you mentioned. Round the corner we have the old grain store as well, obviously not used by that anymore, and we have our goods shed as well, again, converted. But yes, it was quite a busy, bustling market town, and that was all thanks to the railways.
And now you store your spare Mark 1s in it with your Class 08s.
Exactly. Every good railway should have at least 4 or 5 Class 08. We have enough 08s, and yeah, they actually do stunning, sterling work, and the railway wouldn't be the same without them.
Well, this is a great way, I think, of course, to end today's production. And
well, there is one more thing I'd really like to show you.
Oh.
We talked about Alresford being the place where the story began.
yes.
I'd like to show you the location.
Oh, let's take it right back to where it began.
So let's don the high vis and crack on.
There's always something else to see.
Now, Tim, I mentioned that the story started here. In fact, it
Yeah.
started right here. On the 30th of April 1977, this is where the ribbon was cut to reopen the Mid-Hants Railway Watercress Line as a heritage railway, and our story has evolved from there.
In fact, were you here at that moment, Richard?
I
Were you
wasn't.
here on that
No,
day?
no. For a couple of years after that, but it wasn't.
feels like it
It feels like it
sometimes.
some days. Yeah. But yeah, a big start to a you know, who knew where it was going to go. I mean, but at the time it was just Alresford to Ropley, and since then it's evolved into a big business. In truth, we've extended the full 7 miles to Alton. We've established ourselves. We've had our ups and downs, but it's bringing an awful lot of people into the area. It works with the community. Yeah, so it's become a far bigger thing than I think anyone anticipated. If anything, to be honest.
Yeah, I think today on my tours, I mean, I've done this line so many times since I was a kid, gone up and down it. But looking again with new eyes today, looking at the buildings and structures, some that you've rescued, some that you've improved, and some that you've brought in from completely different parts of the country and repurposed. But all of them have been dealt with care and love, and everyone's got a great story to share. And I think just stopping off different stations just shows off a little bit of time. You can look at the detail. There's a story behind all of them. It's worth looking at them a bit harder. So if people are watching this, do stop off and watch each of those as they come along the railway.
Super. Well, as the sun starts to go, we should probably head off. So, Tim, thank you so much for joining us today.
Well, also I should thank you guys as well. Thank you both very much indeed for having me here at the railway, and also to Jeremy and Alex and Bryce all behind the camera, who've been absolutely superstars today, I think. But I think it just shows really perhaps that it really does prove that you should stop off on this railway and look at little details. Each building has a great story to tell, and every single thing that you look at is genuinely fascinating. Just spend some time looking for those stories. So yeah, I say people stop off and do it for themselves sometime. So it's been brilliant, loads of fun. Thank you very much.
Thank you to Richard for putting up with us.
You're very welcome. And realistically, we've still got another 6 miles to go yet. We've got to take that back to where we started.
Oh no!
We
What a
probably
shame.
should. On that note, let's head back.
And to the pub, I think.
Thank you for watching, folks. We'll see you next time.